Hello, greetings. All right, so uh, apologies for I'm only a minute late compared to when I prefer to start, but yeah, just bathroom break in the middle of trying to switch over my desk. So I was doing some schoolwork before the stream, so I had to get my tablet out of the way. Yeah, so there's that. So thank you so much for joining me today, and we're pretty much going to dive right into our Jack Sparrow. So I might need to rearrange the desk a little bit. I managed to get a quick clear coat on a sign project I'm working on, so that is the shadow that's kind of off this way. And yeah, so that's the reason for that. I still need to do a quick coat of the cold wax medium to go ahead and repair that that seal that we had on the finished spring commission. So that'll be... It's a quick spot detail, but because I'm switching my desk from like having the tablet out pretty frequently, I'm slightly leery of like having a safe spot for it to dry where I feel like nothing's going to get into it. So that's been waiting. Just slightly behind there, working on some 3D stuff. My project is to model a Dalek, which, to be honest, I have not even started, but I have been working on a previous exercise. So yeah, so with like in English, with the Derwin set, how we had left it off last night, that I had knocked it over. Now I have all my little blocks back where they belong. So yay! Alright, and for anyone catching up with us, we've done our initial transfer using raw umber pan pastel, so that gives us a nice, kind of like a cooler brown tone to go ahead and put under everything. I could have went with a warmer tone too, seeing how many warm spots there are, but I don't know, I'm kind of digging that color for transfer color. I feel like today is going to be a lot of blocking in about as quickly as I can go. Trying to the beverage down. Let's get to some work. We'll go say hi on the Twitch. And at any point, once I upload the videos over to YouTube, I do hang out for the premiere, so if you have questions, you can certainly ask at that point. And my little swan babbling in the background for us. Alright, so I don't see any questions or comments in our chat room, but yeah, like I said, you're always welcome to go ahead and comment. So we're going in with the usual bright and dark palette that I've been using, and also the shade and tone mixed media set. I don't feel that I need it for this piece because I'm able to mix neutrals. I mean, it's a giant palette comparatively. Most people don't have like 25 colors, and that's not even including my mess of reds and greens that I've added to the one side. So like, this is a crazy full palette. Like, we have all these dots of red that I've been experimenting with to try to decide which red's going to win. And that's just because I don't want to keep the anthraquinoid red on this palette. Ultimately, I want to move it off and put something else in its place. But I like red. It is my favorite color. So it is definitely eating at me a little bit to go ahead and try to swap that out. So I actually put all of our brushes away when I was done last night. So I'm just going to dig out our number 8 round. It's the brush that I probably use the most often on everything in here. And I'm just noticing that I have a nice glob of that white had fallen into my pyrrole, scarlet pyrrole. This M-gram has a strange name for this orange. It's funny that I like this color because it is a little bit more opaque than some of the other colors on the palette. I'm just cleaning that out real quick, so just little blobs of it popped right off. The that white that I'm referring to is the P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. But yeah, I just noticed like I had a nice little gob of it over here, so just a quick bit of palette maintenance. I don't mind like a small bit touching another color as much as I used to. I should definitely put that caveat in here, but because the M-gram colors are honey based, they kind of stay slightly wet because honey is a humectant, so it's holding a little bit of moisture. It's also not hardening entirely. I mean, they found honey in ancient Egyptian tombs, and as far as I'm aware, that would be just as fine to consume then as it is today. So that's pretty crazy. Good rinse for the brush. I do need a paper towel to blot with. I don't know why I'm still using this one. I keep paper towels probably far longer than is practical, but it's still functioning for me, for my needs. I don't like to throw stuff out if I'm still getting use out of it, so when it is not useful, off to the trash it goes. Especially if I start using it for like blotting any acrylic-based media, because then it's not going to absorb for watercolor. So, my weirdness. But this is why I have like a paper towel roll in my art studio that has been here for probably more years than I should probably count, but I don't know. I don't like to use stuff if I don't need to. So from the reference, I'll go ahead and bring that up since we don't have any wet spots yet. From the reference, I think it's a later version of this ring, where it's actually like a faceted green stone and skulls. You can't really tell if that might be a skull from this angle. Like that could be indent for like eye sockets, and then there could be teeth where the detail's just not getting picked up because of how hard that light is for that highlight. So I'm kind of debating doing this green, even though you really can't tell. I mean, it seems ever so slightly green along this edge, but you're really not sure. Yeah, so there's that. I think I'm gonna go in with my Phthalo green yellow shade. This one, Bruce McAvoy from Handprint recommended a secondaries palette with Phthalo green yellow shade, and it is a color that I had wanted to play with for a long time, just because I do like some of those acid-toned greens, which are probably considered quite gaudy by most, but I don't know, something about like lime greens and a lot of these bright unnatural colors, they're just kind of right up my alley. And it's not even that it's specifically an unnatural color. I mean, you can see emeralds in this shade. Doing the whole surface, and then I'll come in and darken most of it, but I just want to make sure it has a little bit of that green tinge to the edge of it. So there's that. Let's see. I think I'm going to start blocking in. It's probably a little less fun and interesting, but a lot of this, there's so many brown and wood tones between his hair. The scarf is really deep in shadow. The musket, not musket, I keep saying musket instead of pistol. But yeah, I want to go ahead and block that in. I think I'm going to leave the face alone for a moment while I go ahead and get some of those in. And that's because some of this is like the biggest bits of contrast. I don't want to have that contrast there before I start working on the face. Otherwise I'll spend a lot more time tweaking and adjusting that I don't want to do, and I might even glaze some more with the purple in a bit. So I think I'm getting all anxious-ish. Alright, this can probably move back a little further now. I wanted to make sure the edges were semi-dry before I move it close to a big watercolor pad that I have back there. I'll park this guy over here. That should be far enough over that I can reach it, but it's not quite in the way. And then this brush I'm gonna just toss over here. And I'm just gonna grab brushes as I need to, instead of yesterday how I had the brushes just sitting there waiting to go. Alright. So we're blocking in a good bit of dark. I think so, knowing this is his scarf back here, I'm going to tint some neutral tint ever so slightly red. I think I'm going to use my pearly maroon for that. Because even though the reference doesn't really display it, I want my shadows to not just be black. I mean, I could paint half of this with neutral tint. That's not going to be as interesting visually. So I want to make sure I have a good bit of contrast, but I am toning this ever so slightly towards red. And the purely maroon, here you can see it in the puddle with the neutral tint, is like, it's such a lovely color. It's like painting with blood. And I am slightly morbid because, well, I was that goth kid in school. So let's get a nice puddle of neutral tint going. I love M. Graham's neutral tint because it doesn't use black. It is my favorite version that I've run into so far because of that. So it uses, from the pigments, it looks like quinacridone rose. It might be one of the more red-toned ones. And also a phthalo green. So I find that a lot more interesting. I'm just going to hit a whole bunch of dark spots with this. And again, I'm doing the silly thing of starting this big object on the left when I am a lefty. And I should pick something to the right first, but I can just flip this upside down if need be. I don't know why my impulses are leaning that way lately. It's like, here, let's do the big inconvenient thing off to this side. Like, you silly person. Basically, I'm just using just enough water that this is flowing. It's probably a touch on the thick side. Ever so slightly, a little bit of water over the top of this. Alright, so we're going a bit around the edge of this pistol. I'm moving my tablet input pen off to the side because I don't need that here right now. I didn't go very dark right there. It's a slight highlight. Something else going in this area here too. I'll do a slight lift for that in a moment. I'm just trying to vaguely suss out where this is transitioning from the scarf to his hair, and that's a little hard to spot. This reference, it is just this big mountain of dark may need to glaze this again because I went in some more water. Okay. I'm actually going to hit it really thin on this side because I think more of what's going on over here is hair. And I want that dark value, but I also want to do like a tonal shift to the hair color. Just leave you that way. Go ahead and just touch into this. It's probably going to dry a little funky. That's okay. I'm not shooting for perfection. Just getting some dark values in. Alright, and now I'm gonna hit this shadow across the top. This is also coming from it's coming from the hat onto the scarf, so I'm gonna do that nice and dark too. Alright, so this mix is a little more water heavy than I like. I'm just gonna grab a touch more of the Purely Maroon and a touch more of the neutral tint up here. I don't know if I'm gonna go in with a Purely Maroon on the general scarf. There's some areas that look a little deeper, like across here where there's that fold, but a lot towards the top looks a little lighter, a little more pinkish, a little bit, maybe a touch orangish, so maybe the deep scarlet might look good up there. Just thin down a little bit. Alright, that's a much better mix. But I do have a nice little water drop on my ferrule, so just best to get that before it splats down on your painting and makes a mess, because sometimes that happens. And you will not be happy when it happens. Unless you're doing something abstract and it can look intentional. So there is that. Alright, I'm just gonna angle this way. Hopefully everything is in frame. Yes. Alright. Just because it's a little easier for me to do some of these straight lines. Just pulling the brush towards me. And I forgot to mute that tab. I normally have that muted when I'm streaming, so I'm not getting distracted by Facebook messages during the stream. I do need to check to see if that is something important. I will do that after I do the stroke. bring this around and into the top of the scarf. And this line. I brought that line too far over. I missed the stop point. We're going to just noodle this slightly to make it seem intentional. Yeah, somewhere I lost where this angle is supposed to come up. Slightly tweak that. There is a darker shadow coming up on the hat. I will deal with that when I add more details to the hat because that is not the scarf. And just to do a quick check to see what's going on. And I'll just go ahead and check on the tweech, see what's going on. So check out what's going on. Okay, so nothing crazy going on with my family. Alright, so everything looks good there. Alright. Yeah, so for the most part I stay inside my software's live screen for what I'm doing video of, just so I can see if stuff might be out of focus. I'm able to take care of those types of issues a little bit faster than if I just wait for somebody to say something in Twitch, because I don't know how much of a delay it is, but there's definitely a delay. I'll look on the Twitch screen and like literally I've pulled something else up, like if I grab like a reference image and bring that over to my main screen here instead of the piece I'm working on. So stuff like that will be really weird. But yeah, I think, let's see, I want to start laying down some base shades with that. I'm thinking I want to actually get this puddle of neutral tint off my palette, since the whole thing is mixed with the red. Well, purely maroon. But I normally leave this puddle kind of open for neutral tint in general. And I don't mind if part of it is mixed with something else, but I'd like to be aware of like what's in mixtures, and if I leave that sitting when I don't really have anything else that's going to be using that mixture, I don't think. Yeah, I want to leave it kind of plain, so it's not perfect, but got most of it. That one drop is fine. It's not going to affect the rest of that puddle when I bring it back in. That whole little middle section of the palette is all my neutral tones, so there'll be things like quinacridone burnt orange, and also indanthrone blue. Sometimes I'll do 2 puddles of that and have like mixtures in between, tipping them between the orange and the blue a lot. Those are a lot of like really great neutrals. While I'm kind of rambling here, I think I am going to grab the rest of this puddle and just start tipping this towards darker, because the neutral tint is a mix between red and green. It makes a really good shadow for this. It's slightly heavier towards the red side, but that should be fine. I'm blending this just because there's a pretty decent puddle, and then I absorbed almost all of it, so yay! Just got a dot of neutral tint on the tip of the brush. And go ahead and fill that in. I don't love the water cup over there. I'd prefer it a little bit further to the left, but then I'll be reaching way over if I get into the shade and tone set, so still kind of working out an ideal for watercolors because of different sized media and other projects going on. So my desk kind of changes at a whim. Let's see, I think I want to go into that deep scarlet. I think this neighboring wash is dry enough, and if a little bit of it blends over, it'll just soften the edge that I have there. So we'll go a little bit darker with the deep scarlet initially. I should probably tone this down, actually. Yeah, that is far too bright. I need to neutralize that a little bit. Neutralizing this because there's a lot of orange. I could use some blue. Also, there's a lot of red. I could also use some green, so probably go into my turquoise for that. Or I can toss in a little bit of that neutral tint sitting here. Yeah, that'll work. I like that mix. Like, how do I always find these little brush hairs? It's not literally like a brush hair like from my brush. It's just a little hair that gets picked up by the edge of my brush. I'm just doing a general wash up here right now. So we got something started. And letting this dry a little bit. So I can blot that and lift. And I got a hair into that wash. Awesome. You don't like leaving them when I see them, so make your washes dry weird. There it is. This top area is a little bit lighter, just going over that again, trying to leave the heavier bit of pigment towards the bottom. That way it just kind of sits naturally for that to dry. I think that might be a fuzzy too, or maybe I bruised the paper a little bit when I was doing the initial wash. This area is further in shadow, but that's fine. Between the pattern and the shadow pass, I'll be doing those layers later. I'm not trying to do a whole lot of wet and wet here, just because it's such a skinny area. It's real easy for that to get out of hand. And my small one's starting to nod. He'll be napping soon-ish. I am going to leave that puddle there, because that is handy for when I do the later glaze, so I can go a little deeper across this bottom edge. Let's see. We have a slightly brighter red tone that looks about the same value as the deep scarlet. I have not used any masking fluid though, so I have loaded the tip of that brush with the with the deep scarlet, but I don't want to put that on. Actually want to stop for real quick, grab my masking fluid so I can mask these dots before I'm getting crazy, because I have a tendency to forget to do my masking fluid. And then I'm struggling more to paint around things than I need to. We'll see how the masking fluid does on this too. I haven't used this yet. This is Fine Line Masking Fluid Pen. And the paper is Fluid 100 Easy Block in Hot Press. So just so you know what I'm experimenting with. Alright, and occasional muting for sneezing because, well, allergies, man. So I do want to preserve the strongest highlight up on this, looks more like a brass or a gold tone bead, almost. Not quite as bright as a regular gold, but maybe more like an antique gold. Okay, so there's that. There's some dots on this one. This one looks a little bit more blue. Or like a very blue purple. We need a little more on that dot. And a dot right there. There. These are not perfect. Oh, and the tip for this one is the fine tip, 0.5mm. So you can go pretty small with the dots. And at the moment it's been my favorite because of how fine those dots can be. Let's see, there's one here with the orange. It's not such a harsh looking highlight. Like, it's definitely a softened one. But I'd rather preserve it and do the initial glaze with it there, and then I can just do a soft glaze on top. And then the dot in, not the dot, the bead in question prompted the masking fluid pen to come out. One there. One a little bit bigger, about there. And there's the pattern, and then there's a highlight on here. I'm going to try to do the highlight with, just being careful with a wet and wet wash. Or maybe I'll just go in and then I'll soften the edge. That's my thought for that one. Alright, those are going to take a minute to dry, especially this big one. That one just blobbed on kind of heavy. Probably a little bit more of a highlight than I need, but it's easier to come back and just subtly tone that down. What else do I want to hit with masking fluid? Maybe some of this down here on the edge of the pistol, because these are really sharp ones. Still wish I had done that edge, but oh well. Spilled milk and all. Just gonna kind of squeeze out a little bit and kind of sketch that in. Just trying to hit the sharpest of the highlights with it. Alright, we have a little bit on this edge here. And a touch that comes down here. And over here. Such an odd little shape there. Alright, and then I think I'm going to preserve the one on the edge of the lips. I have a little bit of this drying, so I'm gonna just wipe off the tip real quick. Come back into these. I might come in and change how some of that's sitting, because sometimes with masking fluid you don't know how blunt the shape is going to be, especially if your highlights are a little bit more organically shaped. Like, you have to deal with the viscosity of the liquid. Sometimes it'll hold a more rigid shape than what you intended to mask off. Oh well. What happened to the end of the nose? Like, I thought I must not have put that line in. Hopefully that's fairly accurate, because I can see the very edge of the nose here, but like nothing up here. I must have forgotten to transfer this line from the eyebrow down into the ridge of the nose. So that's going to be interesting. Alright, let's see, anything else? I'm gonna lean towards no. And there's some highlights on the ring, which, you know what, that's silver too. I might as well paint both silver things. Oh, we're not gonna have that much time left. Alright. Spots here. Little spot there. There. I am doubting my sanity if I try to wrap this up between today and tomorrow. I don't think it's gonna happen. I also need to remember this is significantly more than a previous project that I did, where I clocked it and I averaged, I think, 4 hours total. Alright, so there's that. Fine line lid back on. You have to be careful with that fine line lid. There's actually a really skinny metal, like, pin, for lack of a better word. It doesn't have a sharp edge, but you wind up threading that back down into it, so it stops that from getting gummed up. Alright, so I still have the deep scarlet on the edge of the brush. I'm just going to grab a touch of water. Just check to see if that mixture is still a good thickness, because of waiting for the masking fluid to go ahead and dry there. Yeah, these itty bitty details are gonna be the things that are gonna kill me as far as progress. So I added a little bit of water. I probably should have blotted. But just doing that and trying to maintain my little bit of a highlight in the middle. I want that to be a softer edge. I could do a secondary glaze if that winds up still being too harsh, which I won't really be able to see very well until that masking fluid comes off, so we'll leave that. What else do we have? I want to go over the edge of this a little softly. Kind of re-wetting that. Hoping that the pigment kind of picks up and moves a little bit over the green, just a touch. I want there to be a hint that there is green there, but not too smack you in the face with it. Let's see. I do want to do some toned color. I think I'm gonna go in with my M-Gram sepia for the hair, because it is leaning towards a cool brown. If you don't have sepia on your palette, some raw umber would probably be a decent substitution. Basically, you're looking for having like a nice deep value that is a cooler tone of brown. Kind of hesitant to cover up my line work though. I don't know what is up with this texture I keep seeing. Like, I have switched one of my habits where I used to leave my palette just kind of sitting open on my desk, and at this point I close it now every time I'm working on stuff. Like, every time I'm not working on stuff, just so I don't have potential dust falling into my paint. Yeah, so very, very likely at this point to just say we're probably working on this for another 2 days instead of the one that I was hoping for. Of course, if I can finish it sooner, I'm going to. But I might try to do a couple washes off camera, just that way we can see this developing a little bit faster. I'm doing the lighter part of the hair first. I'll come back in and do the shadows later, because I do have that plot kind of like plotted out separately. I want this to be a little thin so we can get these high points. This side I'm not as worried about because I'm moving the brush in the same direction as the strokes, and I don't mind if it winds up being a little bit streaky with some areas a little bit lighter, some a little darker. That should be fine. So I want to hit my highlight areas first, and as far as values are concerned, these areas are fairly on the cool side. This is incredibly similar to the sepia ink that we were using yesterday for the pistol. So if you don't have the shade and tone set, but you have this, for me this is kind of an experiment. As a channel I was watching, Mind of Watercolor. For a long while, Steve was using 2 different colors to go ahead and tone, like to go ahead and shift his washes towards either warmer or cooler. Which, by warmer, it's just because it is brown tone as opposed to a blue tone. So he was using sepia and Payne's Gray on the palette instead of neutral tint. And what I've done with this palette is I have all three because I'm still kind of feeling out like what's my general process as far as doing work. I did not bring this far enough. I need to bring some more paint in here. I still want this to be fairly light, so I'm going to want to put in our shadows later. Hair is pretty abstract. I am by no means going to sit here and put each individual stroke of hair in. I just want a general idea as far as your overall shape and flow. To make it easier to go ahead and darken this later. Alright. You know what, the sepia is ever so slightly warmer than the sepia ink. Both for the Shade and Tone palette as well as the M-gram version. I think, though, because I haven't brought in the Shade and Tone mixed media set in a bit, I think I'm going to grab a touch of that sepia to go over the edge of the pistol. I think it might be a little bit warmer than some of these areas weren't. Yeah, that's definitely warmer. Okay, I'm going to leave that right here. I'm going to lift a bit. Let's see, is there any other area that was a warmer? Yeah, right over here there's a warmer tone. I'm gonna lift some of this, move it over here. But yeah, the barrel gets very slightly warmer here, and maybe a touch warmer over here. I'm just gonna run this down. And we'll fix that later. I do want to lift it from here. That is too much, too dark. That's still too dark. Just hit it with some water. Scrub those edges a little bit because I don't want hard edges. I can disguise them as wood grain later if I need to. But I'm not trying to go there because I don't really see wood grain in the reference picture. Like, there's a very vague impression of it because of how the variations of color are happening, but it's not like a hit you over the head with that color type of tone. Alright, let's go over this with... I think I'm going to grab some of the Storm Gray to do the edge of this shoulder. This really pretty woven pattern over here too. I went a little too bold with that color on this edge. I'm trying to grab the pigment and push it over here. So over here is where the shadow actually starts. Oh wow, 10 minutes. I am trying to get more on this paper. I think I'm just going to have to do this edge with some white, and it is not going anywhere. Like, normally you can kind of see the pigment doing something if you're trying to lift before you blot it, and that is just not moving for me. That's been my biggest learning curve, trying to play on cotton paper. I definitely find pigments are a little bit more stubborn about lifting. I'll go a little darker right here, just a touch. Probably come back and shade that with a little bit of the graphite gray later, so I think that'll be a pretty color to do on this edge. And then I'll also do like a little bit of white on this end. But for here, I think the burnt embers would have been a better color as far as being a little bit warm over here, but yet dark. This is not a fast-moving pigment because it is so granular. So if you're using it, basically where you put it down is where it is staying. And this needs a lot. Alright. Just... Almost a slight bluish tone up here. So more reflected light from the sky, and also it goes into the silvery tones too. I'll look at those later. What else can I kinda at least block in kinda quickly? I think we're gonna grab the regular M-gram sepia. We'll do that darker area of the hair real quick. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of variation in texture right on this edge. I'm going at it kind of strong. Then we also have that really dark tone right in here. Chops gives us a lot more contrast with this. I'm guessing it's like a metal coin piece. I do plan on popping in a bit more texture with probably some colored pencil. I'm gonna do the lion's share of my washes though. I can lay down color pretty quickly. Yeah, it goes a little bit lighter up here. It almost seems like a bit grayish in some areas, so I might actually use the Inktense white from the Shade and Tone set and to go ahead and dry brush some of that texture in. I think that might fit a little bit better than some of what I was already thinking. This goes a bit darker too here. I'm just gonna hit this with a second glaze. And closer with this. Great, and around since I still have some pigment here. Actually, I'm gonna grab more. That wasn't nearly as dark as I thought it would be. I want to just hit this a little darker. Get some contrast going. Alright, and then I think the plan for tomorrow is to really go over the face a bit more. Couple areas that look a little darker, slightly indicating those. Oh, I can get this dark area too. Just gonna grab a bit more of the sepia ink, not sepia ink, just gram sepia. You can use the sepia ink tints. It's not quite as warm, so maybe mix just a touch of the regular sepia ink tints on there. I can hit this shadow. Right up here. Is an incredibly dark value up here. I could dry brush that right now, but my brush is far too wet to try to do it. So I'm just going to hit the other areas for the moment. And there's some really thin lines and stuff going on up here. I'm gonna leave those white spaces. I'll go wind up glazing them later. I can hit this a little darker now. Like I said, I got some strong pigment on here right now. Right, there's a pretty dark spot down around here. You won't see me using this one too often, just because I've been shying away from using black. Ooh, that's actually further down here. Well, that shadow's a little bit bigger than it was originally. But anyway, yeah, so for the most part I'm currently trying to avoid black. Coming from like, kind of like a design standpoint, I don't mind it, but just while I'm dipping my foot in watercolor, I'm kind of like just avoiding it for now. So the exception being this sepia and also the Payne's Gray that's in my palette. Stripes here. Another area that's a bit dark up here. In this area I still haven't hit quite as dark as it is. Right, I think that's probably as far as, well, you know what? We're only like 1 minute past, so I'm gonna grab just a bit more of the sepia. I'm gonna do this area. I originally just kind of dragged it over, knowing that I would want to tone it towards the hair color. And now that I have the hair color, I'm gonna hit that too. That edge. It's one of the best things you could do for your painting is to hit it with some intense dark values if you have them. And your painting should have at least some areas with some decent dark values. Otherwise, it's probably going to look a little bit flat. Like, even if you're doing something high key, like very like light and like fairies or florals, you should have a couple little spots that are a little darker, just to go ahead and draw your eye in there for visual interest. Ooh. I can see a little highlight from the scarf right there. That's a bit on the red side. I'm going to come back in with that deep scarlet later. I'm gonna just pointing it out because I noticed it this time as I'm working on this area. This area is not dark enough yet, but I don't want to... Oh, the small one is asleep. And I'm gonna go a little darker. We'll do this just for a minute. Just for a minute. A little darker over here. I still have that highlight blocked out. I haven't quite figured out if that would be the scarf or hair. It's hard to tell. So I've just left it for the moment, so I can go ahead and take a look with the digital version of the reference, because that's going to display a little bit better than my printer prints. I don't trust my printer for color matching. Alright, so we're definitely in a better spot than we were yesterday. It's absolutely not finished, but at least I'm seeing some nice dark passages. We got the masking fluid on. I kind of feel like we're at the end of the road for today. I need to suss out a couple of these color values. I think I might go into the digital on Photoshop and just use the eyedropper to go ahead and take a look at some of these and just make sure that my eye is agreeing with what I'm seeing there. So like, you know, the slight bit of blue here, slight bit warmer here. Sometimes it helps to just do a drag of a color sample and to just blot it on there, so you have an idea of like where you're going with some of these tones. Let's see, who does that a lot? I think it's Jason Morgan is his name. He does wildlife art a lot of times with pan pastels and pastel pencils, stuff like that. But he'll do that with his references. I've seen Lacree do that as well. I'm just like mentioning all the YouTubers today. But yeah, I love all three of their work, and it's amazing to just watch them. So if you are looking for other artists to take a look at, you know, there's a huge community, and I think it's definitely worth looking around. So that's if you have the time. I'm certainly happy that you're here with me, and you know, please feel free to follow me on Twitch. You can also subscribe on YouTube. That's where all of my videos are. And you can also find me on Facebook and Instagram. I'm working on posting to Instagram a little bit more often. I've been a little lax there, but you can join the Red Persephone Art Facebook channel, and that's where you'll get updates as far as like videos, other projects going on, random motivational quotes, stuff like that. So if you're interested in that, definitely come join us. Feel free to comment, and we'll keep on creating. I hope you have a great night. Bye.